There's McDermott, Access Partnership, and that was the Internet Governance Principles workshop, and Simon Milner from Facebook, that was the Child Protection workshop. So let's start in the order that we have on our agenda, and that's first Ian Fish for the surveillance workshop.
Okay, I'll try and be very brief. It was a very lively workshop, and we tried to deal with the issues of surveillance and law enforcement, how valid it was, what could be done to improve the view of it, etc., etc. We also tried to push into there a little bit about commercial surveillance and big data, but that didn't really get dealt with very much because there was still a lot of excitement about Snowden et al. So there's still quite a lot going on that front. I also tried to overlay it right from the start with the need to think what we could do from the UK IGF perspective in this field forward from now until the next UN IGF in September. So I tried to get that feel into it as well. The major points that came out that there's a lot of it is all about risk management of data. We didn't really get into anonymization very much, which was a shame because that's something that interests me quite a lot at the moment, but perhaps that's for another day. And the major thing we were talking about is trust and the value of trust and how we could change that. Now, there were two spheres in here, really. One was that the UK was in a very good position because all of its surveillance was subject to rule of law and oversight and the rest of it. And the other viewpoint that was the present was that the UK is not perceived in the same way as it was before these revelations, and that the perception of trust is probably what matters, especially in emerging markets. So there were those two views, and that generated a lot of discussion. To come back to my thing of what can we do, it seemed that what we needed to do, at least in the short term, was to be positive about what we had, because even if the trust is less than it used to be, it's still good. So there needs to be a positiveness about oversight, accountability, the rule of law, etc. At the same time, we probably need to take a look at ourselves as well, although this is much more difficult to do because it's easy to make a positive story, but perhaps we ought to try and work on using our own laws properly, being sure that people know what's appropriate and what isn't, and lots of things to make sure that that piece of work that we've done, which was to put a positive, I won't call it a spin because it is positive, perhaps not as positive as it used to be, but the idea came across that we needed to try and make sure that it was getting better in the background. That's more difficult. It involves policy, it involves politicians, etc. I could go into an awful lot more detail, but we've only got a few minutes each, and it would be an awful lot of detail. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you very much for this summary, and I gather that all of the workshops will have written reports or written summaries at the end?
That's correct.
That's fantastic. Great stuff. Just a quick public service announcement, I guess. There's somebody who's left this folder. Oh, well, there you go. So it's been found. Right, next person is Matthew McDermott for the Internet Governance Principles. Matthew?
Thanks, Olivier. This panel session had a title, Will Internet Governance Principles Enable a Better Internet? And what we found out by the end is that Internet Governance Principles will enable better Internet Governance Principles. And really where we need to start, and really looking at the context of Brazil and the work there, the best thing that can come out of it is a set of principles that look at mechanisms for how different stakeholders interact and how we build better sets of internet governance principles on specific issues in the future. And during that debate, we asked, what should we look for in internet governance principles? What should be the core elements that make them work, that make them good? And we came up with a few. For example, they should be future-proof. They should be high level, because for a large group, that's the only way they'll be agreed. And finally, they should be agreed. They should be, all people engaging with that debate should support the final outcome. The importance of ensuring respect for human rights, and also the importance of agreement by all stakeholder groups was also emphasised. We also asked, can principles ever be global? And although there are a wide range of regional or principles that look at specific issues, there was hope in the room that principles really can provide global solutions. And also, there was a view that although governments have an important role, the internet is ours, as it was put, and that all stakeholders should play an important role in developing internet governance principles in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And finally, our third moderator is Simon Milner from Facebook, and that's on child protection.
Thank you very much. I'll start with a question. Where were you? It's a kind of semi-serious question, because one of the things we felt as a group, and we had a really good discussion. We talked principally around two issues: the evidence around child online safety. What do young people, children, parents, and others say about how well equipped they are for dealing with problems on the web, both from ChildNet and from Ofcom. And then we dove deep into issues around content filtering. But what we didn't have was, frankly, the rest of the internet governance community in the room. And to us, it actually personified one of the issues here, that one of the areas where, which is a fantastic example in the UK of multi-stakeholderism at work and delivering real benefits for people on the internet, including, in many ways, the most vulnerable people on the internet. And the internet governance community, it seems to be shying away from it. And we wonder whether that's because actually people think it's not a good news story, because they believe what they read in certain newspapers or certain blogs that actually, no, this is a bad news story for the UK. The government's made companies do things they don't want to do, that actually we can't cite the child safety, the online child safety experience in the UK is a good example of multi-stakeholderism. And what I want to say to you, and I think came out of the discussion, is it absolutely is, on the whole, a very good news story, and we should be proud of the fact that multi-stakeholderism is at the heart of what the UK is doing to lead the world in terms of providing tools for people, sometimes for parents, sometimes for young people themselves, to keep safe online and to handle and resolve problems if they come across them. The IWF is the shining light in this case, a membership organization funded by industry without regulation, which aims to keep the worst of the worst off the internet and helps ensure that people do not stumble across that content. But one of the things I want to pose as provocatively is, perhaps in time, we might conclude that the approach to filtering to help parents manage the issues that concern them around what their children access in the home might also become a good news story. At the moment, it doesn't feel like that to many of us, and certainly Pete Bradwell from the Open Rights Group raised queries about how the government's role in that. But I certainly felt, and I hope others who were in the room agreed, that Dan Butler from Virgin Media explained very well how they are being very considerate about how they do this. And the final thought I might bring to you is, it could well be that the approach that's been taken in the UK will lead for the very first time for companies that offer filtering products like McAfee, like Symantec, will actually have to be accountable, because they're offering these services to the ISPs. The ISPs are demonstrating that they are alive to the issues of overblocking and absolutely see a role for safety organizations, the Open Rights Group and others to look really closely at what's going on. And therefore, by inference, some of these companies that play a very significant role in the filtering of the web may well have to be accountable for the first time in the UK. That was a point really well made by Jeremy Olivier for Ofcom. So it's an important discussion. You should have been there, but never mind. We know there are other discussions as well. And we really hope that you will take on board some of that thinking about how you talk about internet safety in the UK in internet governance forums.
Thank you very much, Simon. And I think that if you have missed some of the workshops, they will all be, they have all been recorded. So hopefully you'll be able to find them online. They will be put online on the UK IGF website. And hopefully the sound will be good enough and to make the experience not too painful, with apologies for some of the problems we've had technically. But thanks very much, gentlemen, for the work you've done. I'd like a round of applause for the hard work that these moderators have done.